everyone, welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Spruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today I have with us, she's an author, and she has a book that just got released. It's called Breach. It is book number 2 in the Dark Walker series. I have with us Shelly Campbell. Shelly, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, so tell us a little bit about Breach, but I'm pretty sure you might have to tell us about Golf, which is the first one first, to bring us in, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So Breach is book 2 in the Dark Walker series. Book 1, Golf, is a quiet horror. It is set up as, well, if you've ever been the kind of teen I was, probably went through a bit of a phase where you felt kind of invisible in the world. Like you want to do big things, but you just felt like I'm a nobody and I can't do big things. So I thought, let's amplify that. So in book 1, Golf, instead of this kid feeling invisible, they're in a really big family and they physically do start turning invisible. Their family starts forgetting them everywhere, stuff like that. And then they find a door to a cabin that they always stay at. There's a new addition on this cabin this summer, and behind the door on the other side are really bad things. So it's like, it's not Narnia over there. It's bad things that want to get through, and he keeps turning more invisible, so he can't warn his family that there's terrible things trying to get through from this alternate dimension, because nobody can see him on his side anymore. So it's kind of, he's got to save the world, but he's all by himself, all alone. No one can see him. No one even knows anything is wrong. So that's kind of the premise of book 1. Book 2, Breach, gets a little more into he's on the other side of the door now, and what does this alternate dimension or multiple alternate dimensions look like? Yeah. So it's a bit more sci-fi horror, book 2.
Now, Shelly, I don't know about you. I was the middle child, so I know about being invisible. Growing up in the house.
Yeah, we've all had those feelings.
Now, okay, so now, did you attend this to be a series, or did you write the first one and you were like, this has so much meat to it that I have to extend this out?
I wrote the first one with a couple alternate endings before I subbed it for publication, and the one ending was he dies in the end, that's it, this is a standalone. And the other one gave a bit of a, okay, maybe he doesn't die, he makes it to the other side. And when this was initially published with its first publisher, they picked the ending where it was like, you get a glimpse of the other side, and he lives through this, and oh, this looks like it could be a series. But then that publisher folded before we could ever make it a series. But I was lucky enough to bring it back with Erie River Publishing. I think I've seen Michelle on your show. Yes. They were talking about DreadCon a while ago.
Yes.
So yeah, Michelle with Erie River picked up Golf, and then I was like, yes, okay, it's going to be a series now. So it's going to be 3 books. I've actually finished the 3rd book. It's going to be published early next year, probably February. So yeah, it'll be a trilogy when it's all done. And so I kind of had options in mind, and it was depending on whether a publisher wanted a standalone or whether they wanted a series.
Okay. Now, is it hard as an author to pace yourself when it comes to writing a series? Like, where am I going to finish this book at, and where am I going to pick it up, and how far are you going to go?
Yeah, it is hard for me. It might not be hard for other people, but for me, I find you always got to up the stakes. So book 1 was kind of quiet. It's mostly at this cabin, and it's mostly he's worried about his family, saving his family and his immediate surroundings. So book 2 has to be bigger. It's not about saving your family anymore. It's about saving the world, and it almost changes the genre a little bit. It went from this quiet coming of age horror in book 1 to more of a, this is a really big world, we're in different dimensions, almost a bit of a sci-fi bent to it. And then book 3 gets bigger yet. Now you don't have to save your own world, you have to save all these other worlds too, the whole universe. So yeah, I found it hard that way, because you have to make the stakes bigger and make things worse than they were, up the ante each time. And then the 3rd book especially, because it's like, okay, and then wrap this all up, character arc done, everybody leaves satisfied, no loose ends. So I find book 3s are always hardest for me to write, because it's like, I gotta nail the landing on this one. This is it.
Yeah, Shelly, you say you're going to wrap it up with a 3rd. But there's always pressure to do prequels and side stories and just characters comes back away. Is that something that you might do, or no? Once book 3 is done, you're done. this story is closed?
Possibly open to it, but it would more be like something else that could be a standalone. So same world, but different characters. Because once I'm done this character arc for someone, I'm like, no, they're done. They get their happy ending now. Let's stop torturing them. But if we could set something in the same world with different characters, I'd be open to that. That's always fun to explore in worlds that you like.
Now, book 3 is a final chapter. With the ending, did you already have the ending in mind, the overall ending for this series when you finished the first book, or was that something that you had to work to when you were writing the third book?
I didn't have it in mind when I was on the first book, but before I started on the second book, I was like, yes, okay, I know where I want this all to end, because I felt like I would get lost in book 2 if I didn't know where the whole series was ending. So I had a pretty good idea of how the whole series was ending before I started writing book 2, just so that I wouldn't mess things up too much.
Now, as a reader, I love a good series because, like, it gets to you get to expand on the story. And do you feel the same way as a writer? Do you prefer doing series over standalones?
I do, and especially with this series, these are shorter books. They're like a little bit shorter than your average novel, a little bit longer than a novelette. So like Breach is, you know, it's not a chunky book. Golf was a little bit thicker, but they're smaller reads too. So you don't get a ton of room to explore your character, and all my stuff's really character based. I've been told I'm good at making you fall in love with characters and then just putting them through terrible things after that. so I like doing series because it lets me dig into characters a bit more. I get to know my characters a bit more if I've got more time to work with them. I haven't done a standalone yet. I've got a horror series, a sci-fi young adult series, and then a fantasy duology that I've done. So I've yet to write a standalone. Maybe I will love it more.
Now, when you write a series, are you able to fix the mistakes that, let's say, in the second book that were clearly, you know, there in the first book? Is that also a benefit that you can kind of add on and, yeah, like mature the characters? And you know, if you felt like, boy, this one character, I wish I would have added more or had him somewhere. Now I can go ahead and fix that in the second book.
To a point, you can. Your path is laid a little bit, so you can't like change things drastically so that readers are like, "Wow, that doesn't seem like, realistic." Where did he come from? Yeah. But yeah, to a point, you can. I found part of my problem with book 1 in this series with Golf was that I had to really keep track of what rules that I inadvertently make in Golf, because they're going to different worlds and there's a bit of time traveling, and you start to glimpse that in Golf. And then I had to be like, okay, whatever rules I kind of inadvertently made in Golf, like if you go to one side, the time doesn't change on the other side. I have to carry on with that through the whole series. I can't change the rules. So if there was anything I accidentally made a rule out of in book 1, I'm stuck with that. I have to figure a way out to follow those rules through the whole series. But yeah, if there was characters that needed more development or that you didn't get to see enough of in book 1, you do have the flexibility with a series to explore some different angles and things like that.
Listen, I'm excited to read the series. Now, a question for you. Right now, there's a huge influx of indie writers, which is great. But it makes it hard for any one indie author to stand out. What are some practices that you do to help yourself stand out with your projects?
Well, I think like a lot of other indie authors, I could use to do better at this. I'm not the best at marketing myself. One of the things I do is I'm an artist as well, so I do a lot of art. So some of my things that I do to stand out is I was lucky enough to be able to design my own covers on this one, and so nice. I could put up videos of this is what it looked like progress. Like this is what the progress video for the cover art looked like. The initial idea, the final idea. I've got interior art in my book, so I'll put little short videos up on social media of like want to see 2 hours of art in 30 seconds. So I pull my art into it a lot of the time, so people can see short little blurbs of making art and things like that. I also do stenciled book edges, like hand painted book edges.
Ooh.
And I take that to markets when I sell at markets. And I've put up a little tutorial on YouTube of like, hey, if you want to hand stencil your own book edges, here's the way that works for me. So I find just pulling other interests in that are book related, but not necessarily flogging your book is what helps me out. And the other thing I do to try and stand out is I find if you're an indie author, like you said, there's so many of us out there that unless you're spending a ton of money or you're just a genius marketer online, I'm not going to be able to stand out in that big ocean of writers online. I'm trying to do more in-person events. I do a lot of like local Comic-Cons or gift markets and stuff like that, and I tend to sell more books when people see you in person, because if they get to chat with you for a bit and get to know the author behind the book, they're more likely to buy the book, and it's kind of nice to be like, oh yeah, I need to get a Christmas gift for someone, and a signed book from an author might be a cool idea. So I find I'm better at marketing myself at in-person events than online stuff a lot of the time.
And listen, and I'm a big indie horror book reader, and I try to tell, and I go to a lot of horror conventions for the show, and if somebody asks me right now, what form do you purchase most of your books? It's not Amazon, it's not Barnes & Noble. It is from horror conventions or just comic book conventions, just conventions. I purchase more books there than anywhere else. Me personally, I feel like this is most individuals, and it's because you can actually talk to the author. They can tell you what the book is about, like face to face. Like, oh, this is like, I'll go up to the author's table and they're at 6 books. I'm like, well, which book do you think I would like? And they'll ask me, what do I like to read? They're like, okay, well, Body Snatchers, this is a one, blah blah blah. But if you like Body Snatchers, you want to get this one. And I'll walk away with 3 of the damn books autographed. Like, that's how it works.
Yeah, I think that in-person touch is, well, like everything, right? If you get to talk to someone, we all like stories. That's why we read. And a lot of times to buy something, you want the story behind the story. You want to meet the author. You want to figure out who wrote this stuff and have a face to talk to or a name to do with it. Even stuff like this, where you get to have a chance to visit people on their pages and get interviewed and stuff. And sometimes people have to see your face 3 or 4 times before they're like, oh yeah, I wanted to buy that book.
Because I'm a sales guy, I'm a sales marketing guy, and like I tell people do not buy your product, they buy you. Yeah. The person who's selling it. They like you, they're going to purchase it. And I mean, that's why I have this YouTube channel, because I mean, I'm pretty sure you've seen other podcasters, and they're literally talking about the individual's book the whole entire time, which is great. Mm-hmm. But I like for my audience to see the author or the filmmaker as a person. And actually like them as a person, because they're more likely to support them if they like them as a person. Yeah,
I agree there. Yeah.
So, Shelly, have you always been a horror fan?
I have been, but my funny thing is horror books, but not horror movies. I'm terrible with like jump scares and freaky music, so like I can't handle horror movies. But books don't usually come with a soundtrack, and it's really hard to do jump scares in books unless it's like a pop-up book, I guess. So books I have a little bit easier time with. And again, like most horror authors, Stephen King was the gateway for me. Read a bit of Dean Koontz and like weirder stuff like that. So that's not necessarily like straight on horror, but you're like, oh, that was different than the last book I read, sort of thing. So influenced by those sorts of things, and then got into the indie horror scene. And of course, once you start publishing, you find all these other really cool authors with really cool books. So there's so much good indie horror out there right now. You could just read forever and never get to the end of it, which is great. It's a great problem to have.
And as a reader, I'm like, hey, listen, I don't care if there's a million writers. As long as they're posting good, I can read. But I can say, as an author, you're like, oh, no, I don't want a million writers. Authors out there. But like, and put it before the audience, I mean, oh my goodness, and readers, we love this.
Yeah.
We love it.
And I like to say, as an author, like, great, there's always going to be more authors out there. There's more books than you can read in a lifetime. But your TBR pile, it's supposed to be like a finely stocked pantry, right? You're supposed to have books in there. There's supposed to be a big pile of them. If it ever got empty, that's the emergency. And the good thing is books don't expire. So if it takes people forever to find mine, and I'm a little bit slower to market them, as long as I keep plugging away at it, people will eventually find books. I have people that'll contact me and be like, oh, I bought your book last year, but I've never read it, and I'm so sorry. I swear. I'm like, you're sorry? You bought my book. Thank you. I'm like, it doesn't expire. Like, whenever you get around to it, read it. Like, it's not going to go bad.
And I want to say something, too. For all readers out there, it's great to purchase the book, but also leave a review, too. Especially if you like the book. Leave a review, because reviews are so important for indie authors. I mean, they are what can elevate them to another level, or even get another book or two purchased. So definitely, if you enjoy their work, definitely always leave a listen. Even if you don't like it, I mean, leave a review too. But
even the bad reviews help. Honestly,
but put an actual constructive criticism. Don't put this sucks. Just All right, so listen, Shelby, as you know, this is a horror channel. I'm gonna ask you 3 random horror questions. This is just your personal opinion, okay?
All right.
All right, so the first one. In your books, I'm pretty sure you have written many death scenes where your characters have died. What is one death that you're like, oh, hells no, I would not want to die that way?
Most of them, to be honest. In book 2, we learned that the creatures in book 1 that, and this isn't a spoiler, it's obvious in book 1, the creatures in book 1 that David thought were monsters are actually aliens that are trying to take over multiple universes on the other side. And they kind of send this mindless hive mind soldiers ahead of them. And all these things do is eat everything sentient they can find. And not just humans, anything that seems smart. Dogs, like dolphins, octopuses, everything. So one of the likely ways you're going to die in this world is get eaten alive by a ravenous alien, and yeah, there's a person in the book that happens to, and I think that would be a pretty rough way to go, because he's not quite dead when he gets consumed. He's still alive in there for a while. So yeah, that's probably up there.
Eating alive is awful way. Yeah, so that's I would not want that at all. And
I did an article on like what makes a scary monster a while ago. Actually, I co-wrote a nonfiction world building guide with one of my editors. It's called Making Myths and Magic, and one of the chapters is like, if you're writing horror, like what makes a scary monster, and it plays on like there's prime fears that humans have. Since you were a caveman, it would be you get eaten, something's gonna eat you. So like something big and scary eat you. You get abandoned psychologically, so your human group just leaves you and you're all alone. That's another fear. And there were some of them. A lot of them is like sight. Something happens to your eyes. So like this is where a lot of the body horror comes in. Is like you can't see, because all of this stuff back in the day, since primal times when we were tribal survivors, it would be horrifying stuff. You're probably going to die if that happened. So if you can find monsters that play on those kinds of fears, and that's why stuff like the monster with like eyeball in his hands are scary, or things like that, right? Is it plays on some of those primal horrors, and getting eaten is one of the most primal human horrors we've still got.
Oh, that's awful. Yes, eating alive is probably that's horror. Absolutely fucking awful. All right, second question. Out of all your characters in any of your books written, which one would you say is you? Like you look at them and you're like, this character is the closest thing to me.
Ooh, it would probably be David, the main character of this book, because I was the person that always felt quiet and invisible. And it wasn't necessarily because I was invisible, it's because I'm an introvert and I like to be invisible sometimes too. So it's like, I'm fine to just fade into the background. I use humor to diffuse uncomfortable situations a lot, and David does the same thing as well. One of the differences, though, between us is he's much more of a survivor than I am. I'd be the first person in an alien invasion to be like, okay, yeah, just kill me. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna survive this. Just take me now. So like, I've got no survival skills. Where David's a bit more of a persevering soul than I am.
And the final question is, let's go with this one. I know you're not a horror movie fan, but what is one horror movie that you saw that really scared the shit out of you?
Ooh, I remember. There's lots of them. What was it's the Brad Pitt one? Where is the like a murder mystery? Seven, was it?
7, yes.
Remember Seven? Yeah, Seven was quite disturbing when I watched it. I remember going like, ooh, a good twist ending and everything too, and you could see it coming once you saw it. But yeah, that was a good one. It was that one sticks out.
7 is a classic.
Yeah.
All right, Shelly, where can everyone find you?
My website's probably the easiest place to find me. It's got all my social media links there. I'm at www.shellycampbellauthorandart.com.
And that link will be down in the description box, so definitely click on it. Shelly, it's been a blast having you on.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You too. Listen, everybody, go over there and grab your... Well, listen, first, actually do them both at the same time. Grab your copy of Golf, and also grab your copy of Breach. Read Golf, read Breach, and get yourself ready for part 3. And what's part 3 is going to be called?
Part 3, tentatively right now, is called Seed.
Seed. Can imagine what that's about. My brain is going off right now. But definitely grab your copies. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Shelly Campbell. We'll see you next time. Take care.